It is my neighbor girl babysitter's 18th birthday today, and it has inspired me to tell the story of how I stalked the neighborhood kids and picked one of them as my babysitter, like off the side of the road. Totally creep status. So, a little backstory. I live down on the Mississippi coast. I am from Oregon, and my husband is from North Carolina, so we do not have a village here. Also, I started babysitting for my mom's friends when I was an eighth grader. So I knew as a mom that I wanted a young babysitter that I could slow roll into the position. So I wanted her to hang out while I was there and I did chores, hang out while I napped, and then hang out while I did short trips to the store and then longer things. And I eventually had to leave my son for an entire weekend while I went to a wedding and his dad was at work. So, starting probably that like May and June, I started observing the neighborhood kids. I kind of watched where they hung out, whose house they frequented. I would start conversations with them at the lake or when I was on walks with my son. Just casual conversation, ask about the neighborhood, their parents, things like that. I would also make sure that I introduced myself to their parents and they knew who I was. But after observing the kids for a while, I noticed that the majority of the kids in the neighborhood frequented a specific house, and they always talked about how that house would feed them and they loved to be there, and the parents at that house were wonderful. Everybody always spoke very highly of them. At the time, they happened to have a daughter who was, I believe, an eighth grader going into her freshman year. So one day when I was out, I think I was driving honestly, and they were like out on a walk in the neighborhood. I pulled over and I rolled down my window and I was chatting them a little bit like I typically did. And I just said to her, hey, like, are you interested in babysitting? Would you ever want to babysit? And open that door to her. She was super excited. She went home and told her parents. And so I touched base with them and exchanged numbers with Miss Chloe. And that is how I found my neighborhood babysitter. I will say though, I did put a lot of time and effort into observing the neighborhood kids and how they acted and the houses that they frequented, but also what they said about the parents at that house. Because you can always have two different types of houses that you frequent. Neighborhood kids will either frequent a house where they can get away with everything, or they will frequent a house where there is structure and love from parents, and they